shelter, education, modern social and infrastructural facilities are either absent or deplorable. These communities are in hundreds in Nigeria. In retrospect, the nation has gone through a range of rural development strategies, such as the Directorate for Food, Roads and Rural Infrastructure (DPRI), Better Life for Rural Women, and Family Economic Advancement Program (PEP), as well as National Poverty Eradication Program (NIPP). However, the lack of continuity and institutionalization of the programs have rendered them to extensive scholarly discourse about sustainability to rural development in Nigeria. These areas, therefore, are still facing the stark realities of underdevelopment, leading to high-level poverty and migration. But the Buhari administration is not taken for granted, extending the benefits of economic and social programs of his administration in synergy with the states and local government areas. One of the initiatives of achieving the vision of government is making the power sector a key driver in the growth of rural areas in Nigeria.
Where there is a will, there is always a way. To still realize that this need is urgent to our rural communities. There is no way we can get the desired development in these rural communities without having a cheaper energy source.
Data by the International Energy Agency puts 85 million Nigeria's rural and urban population lacking access to electricity. It is a disturbing phenomenon.
We must deliberately have a state policy to address power at the rural community. It will improve their communication.
And when there is light, particularly in the evening hours, women like this can spend some quality time processing their agricultural produce, and that affects their economic well-being for the better.
Over the years, huge resources have been expended by government towards providing on-grid electricity infrastructure in transmission line construction, transformers, and allied equipment. Electricity supply from the grid is still elusive to these communities in spite of previous efforts. The challenges being faced by these communities have been made worse with the inability of electricity market operators to expand infrastructure to rural areas due to remote locations and economic considerations.
We cannot continue to wait for the discourse to get to them. That will be a pipe dream, and only God Almighty knows how long that pipe is. Let there be a deliberate policy to determine the real needs. The needs are simple but very effective. Power in the local communities will make a lot of change.
In fact, it affects our life very greatly, because some of us will have electronic, we cannot operate because no lights, to have news every day. This affects us very well, mostly, even to cover your personal activity in your house, you can't do without a light. In behalf of Angomadugu people or community, I'm appealing to the federal government to look into our problem and supply us with electricity and water supply.
There is now light at the end of the tunnel for the government to end the darkness in villages with renewable energy sources. The Electric Power Sector Reform Act is quite supportive. The reform encourages government to actively engage on off-grid generation of electricity solutions to provide power to rural and remote communities.
Electricity from solar energy, I think it's something that almost all communities worldwide are now driving towards. And we have good intensities of solar energy, and therefore the higher the intensity, it drives costs down. It drives costs down, and I think we should take advantage of that.
In taking advantage, the National Integrated Power Project, NIPP, with its widespread activities of bridging infrastructure gaps in the power sector, now has additional mandate to speedily bring off-grid solutions to rural communities in partnership with Azuri Technologies Nigeria. But what is the appeal and metrics of technology to be deployed?
There are 600 million off-grid customers in Africa right now, and Africa is the only region in the world where the number of people off-grid is actually growing and will continue to grow up to 2030 because population growth is outstripping the rate of supply of electricity. It's about a $25 billion replacement market for kerosene and mobile phone charging right now. So this isn't a new product into a new market. We know what the existing spend is, and we just need to substitute that spend. And within the ECOWAS region, about 180 million people lack electricity. So what does this do for individuals? We'll talk in a minute about what it does for investors. But on average, our customers extend their productive day by about 3 hours. On average, children spend 2 hours per day extra doing homework as a result of having lighting. And it eliminates a lot of the unpleasant things that come with things like kerosene. So it eliminates the fumes, it eliminates the fire risk, and of course it helps with improving the CO2 burden of the world. So AFWA is a finance vehicle. The way that any kind of pay-as-you-go system works is that a piece of capital equipment is put into the customer's hands and the customer pays back over a period of time. So there is a requirement for working capital in order to fund that deployment of equipment into the customer's hands. AFWA is a finance vehicle to fund the rollout of that technology into the customer's hands in West Africa. And it's a 5-year program seeking to serve 1 million households and bring off-grid energy to those households at a cost which is an absolute fraction of the cost of delivering energy through the grid. The fund is a $6.6 million fund, and that funds the first 2.5 years of deployment of those units. It's roughly 200,000 systems. Once we've deployed those 200,000 systems, we have partners who will then put in place the additional funding to fund that out to 1 million units and take it beyond that.
For a trial run, the NIPP settled on Wuna village in the suburb of Gwagwalada Area Council of the Federal Capital Territory.
We've had discussions with the leaders here as well as the villagers. Quite a few of them have relied on kerosene lanterns, candles, batteries, and a few have little petrol generators that are really detrimental to the health.
The chief of Wuna community says his people rely on kerosene lanterns, which predisposes them to a lot of danger.
So if we have sun all day from morning till night, we should get about 8 to 11 hours of light.
From being here in Nigeria and traveling through other West African and African countries, the excitement here in Nigeria is unbelievable. Bringing light to a community in rural Africa is exceedingly important. However, we do need to bring the sustainability with it.
At the official inauguration of the pilot project, Vice President Yemi Osinbajo speaks to the people about the initiative.
It's a pleasure and privilege to declare and to commission the solar home systems in use in the village of Wuna, and This is going to be the beginning of the deployment of solar home systems and solar power to very many villages all over Nigeria. And so I commissioned these solar home systems for the benefit of the people of Muna and for the benefit of the Nigerian people. Very hardworking, very serious-minded, very committed to their country and to their communities, but lacking in some very important tools for work, lacking in very important facilities to make life easier for themselves. And in November of 2015, I think the conversation actually started about September, the President Muhammadu Buhari, spoke to me about what we could do to very quickly accelerate electrification, especially in the rural areas. We had in mind all manner of different types of projects that we could do to bring electricity to many of our rural communities, to many of our villages. And he was particularly concerned that as we spoke about farming and also education in the rural areas, how would we be able to get maximum, irrigation facilities, maximum facilities for education, all of those kinds of things. How do we maximize these things if we can't get power to those places? Water pumps, irrigation equipment, just about anything requires power. And so we began to think about it and to talk about what we could do. And renewable energy, especially solar power, seemed to be the one way that would be cost effective and that we could deploy very quickly all over the country. And I think that once we took that decision, we were very fortunate also to have met with the UK Minister for Africa at the time. They were launching a scheme called Energy Africa. And it was through Energy Africa that we came across Azuri Technologies, because they had been doing some work in parts of East Africa. So we came together and we began to look for ways of deploying solar systems in villages in Nigeria. And I think there must be something very special about Wuna village, that it became the very first to have that deployment done. And I hope that you will always remain first in everything. Thank you. But let me say that we expect that this will be replicated all over Nigeria, all over Nigeria. We're starting with 20,000, but I'm sure that we'll ramp up very quickly. We've been talking to the private sector about involving themselves also in this project. We think that as solar power becomes cheaper, and it is becoming cheaper really practically day by day, we'll be able to afford to do even more, to deploy more across the country, especially to those places that are not at the moment served by our grid. The grid is just one, the grid is one, if you like, transmission center. But we cannot use, or we cannot take all our power from the grid. And so in the next few years, it will not be absolutely important for you to be connected to the grid, because we will be deploying every type of off-grid solution that we can deploy. And we want to do that in the industrial areas. Of course, we have noted that this particular area is an industrial area. It's supposed to be the industrial heartland of Abuja. And we think we can deploy off-grid capacity here, so that this place can also benefit from what it was originally designed to be, that is an industrial city. So it's also a job creation opportunity. And of course, it's also an opportunity to improve, especially the technology awareness and skills of young people in this community. So I'm really excited that we now have an opportunity to do something that we ourselves can put together. The technology is not too sophisticated for us, and that's why we're going to be putting a lot of pressure on Azuri Technologies to begin local assembly of all of this solar equipment right here. We think that we have the capacity to do it. We think that we can do whatever it takes to be able to manufacture solar technology here, even here in Wuna.
Similarly, the Managing Director of NIPP, Chedu Ugbo, explains the modalities of the rollout under the first phase.
Under the first phase of the program, Your Excellency, NDPSC will deploy about 20,000 units of solar home systems to these underserved rural communities. NDPSC has already deployed 200 units of the solar home systems as pilot program here in Wuna village. The beneficiaries of the 20,000 units are among the already identified communities of the 19 northern states of the Federation. The units will be deployed within a period of 12 months. NDPSC adopted a community-based approach that will allow the rural low-income dwellers an opportunity to participate in this project. This approach allows a monthly payment for energy and also acquisition of the solar home unit after a certain period of time. In this case, in the case of Wuna, 3 years. The project is critical and strategic in so many ways, and a new department is now in place in NDPSC to drive this project. In addition to the solar home unit, our solar project is also directed at auditing and reactivating about 1,073 solar-powered boreholes.
Our objective is to bring light and mobile phone charging to people who previously didn't have power. It's an irony within Africa that 60% plus of people have a mobile phone and only about 25% of people have access to electricity. You have rural villages a long way away from grid electricity, and at 7 o'clock at night when it gets dark, People are using candles, people are using kerosene, and both of those are both expensive and dangerous and provide a very poor quality of light. What we've been able to do is to combine mobile phone technology and solar technology, so that instead of having to buy solar equipment expensively up front, people can pay for it as they use it in exactly the same way as people pay for pay-as-you-go mobile phones. And the rate that they have to pay is less than the cost of the kerosene and the mobile phone charging it replaces. Like many high-tech startup companies, we're not just innovating in terms of technology, we're innovating in business model, distribution model, countries we're accessing, and so on. The impact of lighting on rural households enables people to have a whole range of activities that we just take for granted.
And I hope that they don't allow it to die like we had started the Operation Rural Light Up Nigeria, and today we're not really hearing about it. So
I'm sure going forward, when we're considering the budget, efforts along this line will be supported very strongly.
From there, with the youth inside room, and my children that they feel read the book.
You see, you never spend any money. That is it. The light help us, and we with our children.
Before they use generator, but as this light come now, we know the user.
One would have thought that the conventional attention of power generation that NIPP has been paying, they will stick to that orthodox mode of power generation. And to think that now they are considering other renewable option of powering communities, powering homes by providing some kind of movable power solutions to homes and communities. It means that, yes, the NIPP is really changing. A lot of this change, this shift in generation option, you would see a lot of communities enjoying stable power supply. So if NIPP is taking a great initiative in that direction, then it means there's a positive change.
We cannot underestimate the expectations of the rural communities. Let's not leave it to the local people. Their outreach, their resources are very poor. Government should deliberately do that for them, because the essence of governance is to provide good livelihood to the rural folks.
State government should partner with development partners and get communities involved, minimize risk for the development partners so that they can easily come in and we'll have electricity from solar energy. The good thing is that government is listening. Government is working towards achieving what is in the national energy policy. Need to diversify our energy sources, both for electricity and for fuel.